guys, it's Horsey Steph, and I am back with a Horse Trainer Reacts to Heartland segment. So exciting. We are continuing to watch season 1 episode 4 and following Amy as she kind of gets to know Ben and his horse Red. I'm so excited to keep watching this episode with you. If you guys could go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe for more videos, that would mean so much to me. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump on in and see how things keep progressing.
I didn't know if she ever got it.
She didn't write you back?
God, that would be horrible to send that letter asking if you could come back and not even get a response. I feel bad for him. Obviously, I don't know what he did to create this situation in the first place, and I'm pretty sure he did something pretty awful. But I can't imagine sending this letter begging to be able to come back and not even get a response. It seems really sad and honestly a little harsh. After a few years, I think he at least deserved a response, even if the response was no.
Just like you said you were going to come to the open house and you didn't even bother to show
I
up.
was there, Will.
I get why she was upset about that. He promised to come and she never saw him because the grandfather kicked him out before he could say hi, which really sucks. Again, just messing with this relationship and I think really breaking Lou's heart. Some better communication would make a huge difference. It's really time that Lou talks to the grandfather about her relationship with her dad and is open and honest that she wants to continue to have a relationship with him so that the grandfather doesn't keep pushing Tim away over and over again.
Her dad were practically neighbors.
I told you I wasn't planning on leaving town.
I'm glad that he's at least sticking around and, you know, gonna be in the area so that he can have a relationship with Lou and hopefully eventually have a relationship with Amy. Obviously the grandfather is a whole other story, but if he is in the area, he can definitely have a relationship with whoever wants to have a relationship with him because he's around. He's not far. It's not that hard to go see him and visit him and communicate with him. I'm really surprised to see Ben in the round pen. I wouldn't have expected that considering, again in the last segment, I called him a horse abuser and thought he didn't deserve to own a horse. And yet he's now in the round pen doing groundwork, which seems very out of character for him. And he's actually being kind and gentle and speaking kindly with his horse. So again, is this the flip-flop episode? Amy's crazy, Ben's a good horseman, then Ben is horrific, Amy's the voice of reason, now Ben is a kind horse person who takes care of his horse and does the foundational pieces. I'm really surprised to see him round penning because round penning indicates that there is some understanding that you need a foundation, a solid foundation in order to ride and jump your horse. There's no reason to waste your time round penning if you're not building some sort of foundation or doing some sort of groundwork. So it's really interesting to see him do that. I can't wait to see what happens next because at this point I don't understand this episode at all. Don't understand anything that's happening.
It's the way he treats that horse. You gotta say something to him.
So I don't know why they're complaining about how Ben is treating the horse when he's just round pinning it normally, kindly. Maybe he's not doing anything extra special, doing the join up method or whatever, but he's being kind, polite, and correctly round pinning a horse. So I don't understand what the issue is. And they can't tell me they don't believe in round pinning because they do that stupid join up thing.
She must be paying you a lot of money to look the other way.
I think that comment was totally fair. Amy is looking the other way. She is ignoring abuse because she's getting paid to have him here and he's a guest, and what is she really gonna say? Wouldn't be enough for me. However, again, I don't think he's abusing the horse in this instance, so I don't know what their problem is with it. Seems honestly less abusive than the join-up technique Amy did in episode 1 with Spartan.
Hot ash?
More like pain in the ash.
That was pretty funny.
How much staff can the Poverty Barn afford?
There was no need for her to come talk trash to them for no reason. Like, why come to somebody's property just to trash talk them and create drama? But I guess that's this girl. That's Ashley. She creates drama. Don't like her very much. Don't like most of these people, honestly.
I'm talking about a real job.
Oh, working at Heartland is a condition of his probation.
Oh, that was low. That was a low ball. I get that Ashley trying to offer him a job and poach him from Heartland was rude and unfair, but telling Ashley that he was on probation and that's why he has to be at Heartland is really low. That is for him to share. He probably never told Ashley that he was in jail in the first place, and honestly, it's none of her business. And Amy shouldn't be sharing such a private detail about Ty without his permission. Again, that's his thing to share, and it really wasn't relevant to the conversation. I would storm off too. Piss me off.
It's no big.
I should have never said that.
I'm sure it just slipped out of her mouth and she didn't even think about it before she said it, but it was still really uncalled for, so I get why he's angry. I'd be angry too. But I mean, I'm sure she didn't mean it in any bad way. I think she probably just didn't think before she talked, and I'm sure he'll forgive her in due time, but he's allowed to be angry for a little bit.
Briar Ridge, Heartland, it's all about the money.
Now that's a low blow too. That was a really low blow. Heartland is not all about the money. Having a guest mistreating his own horse at the ranch is not nearly the same as promoting and charging clients for the abuse of their horse. That being said, I wouldn't look the other way. I think Ben needs to be addressed. I think he needs to be talked to. I think something needs to be done about that. But it's not the same as that being just how we treat horses here. Even in my barn, I have had clients in the past, and I will always get clients in that do things that I think are questionable, ill-advised, and maybe not very fair to their horses. That's always going to be a part of my barn, as much as I don't want it to be, because not everyone's going to think and act exactly like I do. Obviously, on some level, my students and my clients are a representation of me and my training, but they're also all their individuals, and what they do on their own time isn't completely under my control. If I had somebody being as abusive as Ben was when he was riding in the last segment and beating his horse up, coming up to fences and yanking on his mouth, I would eliminate that client. I wouldn't allow that toxicity in my barn. However, small acts of, unfairness or just training I can't promote, it's all part of the process. People are learning, and we also need to recognize that everyone is going to learn at their own time. So I think that Ty is being really harsh here. Perhaps this round pinning is a step in the right direction for Ben. And perhaps he is actually making improvements and making strides in treating his horse better and doing a better job. And you need to recognize that, not just bash Amy because everything's not better. It's basically the same thing as a problem horse. It takes time, right? Over time, you have to learn a new, better way of interacting with your horse, just like a problem horse has to learn a new, better way of interacting with people. So I think you need to have a lot of grace in that process. Ty is not showing that grace, but I do get where that comment came from. Low blow, but you know what? She really hurt him, and she said something really nasty too. So tit for tat, really not an adult, mature way of doing things, but they're both young and clearly upset. And so I chalk that all up to immaturity.
Thought I told you weren't welcome on my property.
I'm surprised that Tim came to talk with the grandfather. I probably would have just left that well enough alone and pursued a relationship with his daughters and left the grandfather out of it and let the daughters be the one talking to the grandfather. So I'm curious what he has to say, and hopefully he's not going to create more drama and dig himself a deeper hole than he's already in.
As far as you're concerned, I'm always the bad guy, huh?
You make your bed, you lie in it.
I'm really, really curious what this whole story is, because Tim clearly has a different opinion than the grandfather. The grandfather thinks he is protecting his family, his daughters, by separating Tim and exiling him. And Tim thinks that he deserves a way back in. He deserves a relationship with his daughters, which I agree. I think he does deserve that if they want it. But Tim also doesn't think that he deserves this hatred from the grandfather. So I would be really curious to hear this story and kind of judge it for myself, because so far they've just kind of hinted at stuff. They haven't really told us anything, so I don't know why there's so much drama between these two. But Tim's not going to get anywhere talking with the grandfather. He should just move on and pursue the relationship with his daughters and leave the grandfather out of it, at least as much as he can.
You had your chance to be a father.
That was the past, Jack.
Good for him. They should be part of his future as long as they want to be. Again, it's their choice. Especially Lou. She's a complete adult. I mean, she was out living out of state on her own. She deserves to do whatever she wants if she wants a relationship. Amy, I can see how that could be a little bit more challenging. She is 16, but she's also running the whole business. She's the head trainer at Heartland. Like, she's clearly a mature enough 16 that she can decide whether she wants a relationship or not. Again, it's not up to the grandfather, and it shouldn't be. Really shouldn't be.
Trail rides are kind of a waste of time.
I can see his point of view. Trail rides do take kind of an excessive amount of time. I think they are useful. They provide an opportunity to bond with your horse. They provide kind of a unique conditioning opportunity. They have a lot of benefits, but I mean, I see his point of view. Obviously, as a trainer, I have a lot to do in my day-to-day. I don't trail ride super often. I do wish I did it a little bit more. And some of my horses get out so very rarely. Others of mine get out a little more frequently because it is such a time-intensive thing to do, and I lack the time to do it. So I understand his point of view. But I do think it has a lot of benefit, and I do try to at least take my horses around the property pretty frequently, if not on a real actual trail ride that I have to haul out to and dedicate a good, half day to. All right, well, she's convinced him to go out. I really don't know how she managed that. It's really interesting, this whole, hot, cold attitude he has towards his horse. On one hand, Red is amazing. Ben loves him. He's had him since he was an unbroke 3-year-old, so clearly he was involved in the whole starting and getting him going. He knows him really well, and he's grown up with him a bit, it sounds like. Yet on the other hand, he hates him, he doesn't care for him, he tosses him to other people so that they have to deal with putting away his horse, and he abuses him when he rides him. So that's intriguing. I would guess that Ben has a lot of mental issues, and his horse is kind of trapped in the middle of that. This just seems like a really toxic relationship he has with Red, where I think deep down he really does love Red, but Red is also kind of his whipping post when he has anger or all these difficult emotions he's not ready to process yet or doesn't know how to process. I think therapy would probably really help him with Red, because if he were a little more mentally balanced, I suspect he would treat Red better. And I see this a lot in the horse world, where people have problems in their life and their horse just kind of becomes like the place they take it out on. And while they do love their horse and they're very attached to their horse and they want the best for their horse, at the end of the day, their horse ends up taking on all of their pain and suffering, which is really unfair and unfortunate. And you have to feel bad for both the person and the horse in that situation. It seems a little bit to me like Red and Ben have that relationship, at least from the little bit I've seen, and obviously I haven't seen a whole lot, so it is a little quick to judge, but it's a TV show, so we get to be quick to judge.
At least you have your aunt, though, right?
Until she dumped me on you guys.
Oh, that's tough. I hadn't really thought of it that way. His parents divorced and he got sent to boarding school, got kicked out of boarding school, I'm sure, because he was super angry about his parents' divorce and was acting out. Went to live with his aunt, and then his aunt shipped them off to him. He doesn't really have a home, and nobody really wants him. He doesn't belong anywhere. That would be really, really tough. I'm starting to see why he might have kind of these mental struggles and suffer with rage and potentially depression as well. It would be tough. I feel bad for him. Doesn't make how he's treated his horse excusable, but understandable. And there's, like I said, therapy would probably really help. Okay, so Red has probably never been in water because he's a show jumper, and Ben already said he doesn't believe in trail riding, and he's had him since he was first started under saddle. So I don't think it was smart of Amy to just trot into the water. And, you know, what was Ben supposed to do except follow her? Because they're going on a trail ride together. That seemed like setting him up for failure and setting Red up for failure. I obviously don't condone how Ben is now responding to this situation by beating his horse and basically trying to force his horse into the water. But, you know, Amy could have had a little bit more thought. She knows this is not a trail horse, not a horse that's experiencing these things regularly. Should have asked if he'd been around water, asked if he liked water, and then chosen whether they wanted to take the time to introduce him to water or just take another path. You don't have to cross water just on every trail ride. So beating the horse and spinning him around is not actually helping anything. All he's doing is making this horse even more panicky. The horse is spinning to try to get away from both the whip and the water, which he thinks will probably eat him. And he's just trying to find any way to get to a safe spot. And Ben is making sure that the safety is not with him. There is no safety in this area. The horse is just going to get more and more amped and eventually explode or shut down, depending on how skilled Ben is in shutting a horse down and overriding their fear response, which you should never ever do. It's completely abusive and horrific. No, this is not how you teach a horse how to do something. You don't beat them and force them and basically make them so scared of you that they confront their fear. I mean, would you want to be treated that way? Really? Like, what if we taught our kids like this? You know, held up a whip and said, you jump in this water that you've never ever seen. Or, better example, held up a whip and said, you jump in this hot lava, and if you don't, I will beat you. The kids think it's gonna freaking burn them and kill them. Perhaps it's not actually hot lava, but they think it is. So you're holding up a whip and beating them for not doing it. It's not fair. That's the situation Ben is putting Red in. Completely inhumane, abusive, horrific, and unfortunately not an uncommon training tactic in the horse world. So many people do this, so it really just makes my blood boil. I'm glad Amy's speaking up, though.
See?
There is no way that this horse would realistically calmly walk in the water after all of that. I'm not saying you can't get a horse in the water that way. Certainly you can. Horses are very motivated by fear, so you can definitely shape their behavior that way and show them that something scary is safer than something else that originally seemed not scary to them or seemed safe to them. However, once they get in that water, they're not going to be relaxed and comfortable. They're going to get in that water. They're still going to be completely panicking from the fact that you literally beat them into the water. And they're not going to be able to think and process whether the water is safe because they're not in that mental state. The water is just going to still remain terrifying, always be terrifying because of the way you introduced it until you reintroduce it in a better method. Of course, over time, the horse might be conditioned to accept the water better. But in this very first instance, the horse is still going to be panicky. He's going to be trying to get away from the water, probably run through it or like leap into it and take off out of it to get to the other side. Because again, the horse is looking for perceived safety, and they're not going to think the safety is in the water. They're going to think the safety is through the water, on the other side of the water, because they've been shown that they have to leave that first bank they were on because that's clearly not a safe option. That's what you've taught them in this beating. Amy is just speechless, which totally makes sense to me. I would be speechless too. Like, how can you be so ignorant? How can you not even listen to what Amy's trying to tell him? And that was just horrific to witness, even in film. I can't imagine witnessing it in person. Honestly, I would be like, you know what, you go back. I don't want to ride with you anymore. I wouldn't be able to deal with it. I have a very low tolerance for horse abuse, and that is definitely abusive. Well, we are 3 parts into this episode, and I'm back in the disliking Ben's horsemanship phase. I don't dislike him as a person because I think he's just so troubled. I feel bad for him. I really think he needs to pursue therapy and really work on his feelings because his horse is just suffering as a result of him. And that really isn't fair. But I can't hate on him too much because I know he's had a really rough life. He doesn't have anywhere he belongs. He doesn't really have a home. He doesn't have a family that loves him and wants to spend all this time with him. He feels abandoned. It's just really a shame that his horse takes the brunt of it. I'm hoping that Amy, now that she's spoken up a little bit, will continue to speak up and help him understand that he is taking out all his anger and frustration on his horse, because I know he doesn't truly want to do that. I think he doesn't realize he's doing it and doesn't realize there's another better way of communicating with his horse. So my hope is, as we continue watching this episode, we can see Ben starting to change and adjust a little bit, recognizing how he's treating his horse a little bit more, reflecting and being able to deal with his feelings and thoughts a little bit better, so his horse doesn't always get the short end of the stick. If you are enjoying these Horse Trainer Reacts to Heartland videos, check out my playlist linked below, which includes all of them in case you missed them. And remember to tune in every Tuesday and Friday at 5 p.m. I release new Horse Trainer Reacts to Heartland videos. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.